Ladies, gentlemen, and whatevers, welcome to the very first episode of Middle of the Road Podcast. Here at MorPodcast, we talk about issues in current politics, life, religion, dating, eating, and perhaps someday even sports or brushing your teeth. It's a show about everything, kind of like an inverted Seinfeld in a sense. We're hoping to make this podcast a weekly thing, with a new episode being released every Sunday. We'll also be creating some music and sounds for the podcast in future, but for now, enjoy some of my old music to avoid copyright claims. Joining me today is my co-host, Ryan Schmidt.
Hello.
Hey, Schmidt. How are you doing today?
I am just peachy, status quo, I suppose. How are you, TJ?
Pretty well. You don't have to shout into the microphone. Please don't do that. Anyway, so that's Schmidt. I am TJ. So we got TJ and Schmidt here. We're going to be the main co-hosts on this podcast. And if I had a nickel for every time Ted Cruz has contemplated a rational thought, I wouldn't have two nickels to rub together, leaving me to have to live off the welfare system so hard that Ted Cruz himself would take whatever nickels I came across and redistributed them to Goldman Sachs, all the while complaining about the left's request for reasonably highly favorable redistribution of wealth. We have a ton on the agenda for today, but before we get started, I want to let everyone know that on our website, which can be found at www.stopblowingholesinmyship.com, it will be up and running in the upcoming weeks, so if you have any inquiries, comments, concerns, requests, the topics or issues, whatever you like, just feel free to give us an email at tedcruzisamoron@stopblowingholesinmyship.com. Okay.
Stop blowing holes in my ship!
Okay, first up on the agenda today, just because we are both going to be perhaps engaging in a little bit of drinking and maybe some even that smokable, completely legal tobacco stuff that everyone's doing nowadays. We thought we'd start this podcast off with a little bit of something educational, so we're just going to jump right over to Wikipedia right now and go to a random article, and we're just going to learn something today. All right, and today we're going to be learning about Samuel Iles Pierce. I've never heard of this guy. Who
is he, TJ?
He's a reverend in England. He's a theologian, and he was part of the evangelical church. He was a minister, but he was also a Baptist, so he's somehow 3 or 4 different denominations.
Interesting. What's significant about this individual?
Of the
Why is he
same
in the
religion.
news?
Well, see, the reason he's so famous is because he had a career in... That's it. He's just a priest. Yeah, he's from Sussex in Kent. He's married, and that's about it. This is the shittiest article I've ever seen.
That's very riveting.
I thought we were going to learn something interesting.
Very riveting.
All right, okay, fuck
There's
that.
a theologian in Britain. Wow.
Yeah, nothing special. To note, I literally just read the entire article just in my head. Yeah.
And that brings us to a more pressing matter today, ladies and gentlemen, and that is the dying field of journalism.
Oh, boy. Speaking of journalism, one thing I do want to bring to you, because I have a lot of friends who have been asking me about this. It is close to the new year, and I know a lot of you people out there probably still very recently giving up on all of your New Year's resolutions, as it is the 14th. However, as most of you know, or some of you might know, I am doing Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Hercules diet. It's about a 6-month diet that he had to do for the role of Hercules.
You're a crazy bastard.
Oh yeah, it's a little insane, but I know a lot of people want to know how that was going, and it's going well. I'm always hungry all the time, surprisingly, except on Sundays, which are now my cheat days. And so, for anyone who wants to maybe follow along or try it out, I'm actually going to put a link in the description. It's actually a pretty good challenge to yourself. Anybody who's into fitness or health and wants to maybe try something a little harder than their normal. It is a little insane though. It's a bit intense. A little over 5,000 calories every single day. 7 different meals. First meal being steak, egg whites, and oatmeal. And then after that you got chicken, rice, broccoli, rice, halibut, asparagus, bunch of meats.
Yeah, we live together, TJ and I, and I just have to say the dishes that you go through on a daily basis are
insane.
It's disgusting.
It's insane. Yeah. I mean, and if you get it on the go, you got to get at least 7 Tupperware, because then you got to fill each one with a separate meal. It's a big pain in the ass. Plus, you got to do 60 minutes on the elliptical every morning, and then a couple hours later, you got to go to gym for 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on the day. it's just a pain in the ass. But if you want to know how it's going very well, and I suggest you guys all try it. Check the description below if you want to, die.
Yeah, because that's just something you're gonna do on a random whim, huh?
Pretty much.
Hey, you know what? I feel very masochistic today. I'm gonna go on a rock diet and workout schedule.
Think everybody on New Year's Eve, what do?
I'm gonna drink less soda. I'm gonna eat healthier, and I'm just gonna get a good workout body for the beach in the summer.
Oh, it's January 18th. I'm gonna have a Coca-Cola with half Coke, half Diet Coke, because we're still partially on the diet.
Right. I'm watching my figure
At Taco Bell. Did anyone catch that?
I'll only get 3 cheesy gordita crunches, please.
Nobody caught that? Taco Bell sponsored by Pepsi, not Coke. Thank you, guys. Thank you for paying attention.
Brought to you by Carl's Jr.
Brought to you by Carl's Jr. Okay, anyway, now, past all the boring stuff, let's get to the meat. Let's get to the heart of what this podcast is about. And it's basically about...
shitting on right-wing politicians.
Or just two guys at a table talking. We happen to talk about right-wing politicians every now and then.
And shit on them.
Speaking of right-wing...
first up for the shitting is our old friend, Arizona darling, convicted criminal,
convicted
Arpaio.
felon.
Joe Arpaio, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, running for Senate.
Could you say that again?
I received an email from the DNC because I'm on there. I'm on their list. I find it entertaining.
Oh yeah.
And I saw this piece of news and I couldn't believe it. I had to go through at least 10 articles on Google before I could even grasp this concept. This man, a convicted criminal.
I legitimately thought it was from The Onion.
He's actually running for Senate, and what scares me is that I think he actually has a chance.
Right. So for those I'll just kind of put out a little bit. For those of you who might be listening who don't know who former Sheriff Joe Arpaio is, he was the sheriff for Maricopa County, which is the largest county populace-wise in the entire state of Arizona. It encompasses Phoenix, Scottsdale, all the big cities, literally over 1 million people. And anyway, so Sheriff Joe Arpaio, in 2007, he had a class action lawsuit filed by the American Civil Liberties Union that accused Arpaio of targeting and unlawfully detaining Latino residents suspected of being undocumented immigrants. In 2011, the U.S. Justice Department drew damning conclusions after a 3-year-long investigation into Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. One federal investigator described his practices as the, and I'm quoting here, most egregious case of racial profiling that he'd ever seen. He's a good guy. A federal judge that year ordered Arpaio to stop illegally detaining Latinos suspected of being in the country without documentation, but Arpaio continued regardless and implored his supporters to, get this, help him pay his legal fees to protect him against the Obama administration and its rampant, unfounded charges of racism and racial profiling. Thankfully, in May of 2016, a federal judge found Arpaio guilty of civil charges of contempt and pursued criminal charges. Arpaio claimed during the trial that he had unintentionally violated the judge's orders, though. But the judge had alleged that Arpaio had continued with his anti-immigration sweeps in order to help his 2012 bid for re-election. And he did get a sentence, though. He was found guilty up to 6 months behind bars.
However...
oh, yeah.
In around August of this year, as I'm sure many of you have heard, Trump pardoned him in Phoenix.
Right.
Well, he announced the pardon in Phoenix around August, and
well, and you have to remember too, like when we say that he was illegally and unconstitutionally searching people because they were brown, and not even that, not just that, he's a notorious scumbag. In fact, aside from that, he forced people in his jail to work outside in 50-degree plus weather. If you do Fahrenheit, it's over 110. And he literally did the chain gangs. He would have prisoners have their legs chained to each other, walking in rows. He also made the men wear pink to make them feel more feminine. He also got in trouble for not properly or adequately feeding the prisoners, which is, the textbook definition of abuse of authority. He let multiple people die of thirst in his prisons. They forced a woman to give birth on the jail floor in chains whilst the guards laughed. Oh, and the baby died, by the way, in case you were wondering. He also ran a jail that he himself referred to as a concentration camp, where prisoners would die at an alarming rate, often without explanation. And one of Arpaio's jailers nearly broke the neck of a paraplegic guy who had the temerity to ask for a catheter. A paraplegic.
How dare he?
Yeah, and as a public stunt, he also marched Latino prisoners into a segregated area with electric fencing. Arpaio also once arrested a Phoenix New Times reporter for covering him. And the Phoenix New Times actually sued him and then won $3.75 million on a settlement for that. Also under Arpaio, the MCSO, which is the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, they failed to investigate hundreds of sex abuse cases, many of which involved children. But he somehow found time and money to send a deputy to Hawaii to look for Barack Obama's birth certificate. You know, they couldn't look into like the pedophilia and stuff like that. But even though Obama released a short form birth certificate, that wasn't enough. He released his long form. That wasn't enough. He went into the Hawaiian newspaper archives and found the date of his birth in the local newspaper. But Arpaio just called it forgery, so that wasn't enough. Which is funny that they have such a big deal with him not being born in America when their beloved Ted Cruz was born in Canada. I digress. Oh, and also, at one time, he staged an assassination attempt against himself. That was weird. And don't forget, in 2013, a federal judge confirmed what literally everybody in Phoenix knew, that he'd been racially profiling against Latinos. So naturally, he hired a private investigator to investigate the judge and his wife. And then when found guilty of contempt of court, he attempted to destroy some of the hard drives containing material that was supposed to be turned over to the court. He also paid millions to settle lawsuits where deputies stood by as inmates were brutally beaten, some of them to death. And because this is the Old West or something, he had a sheriff's posse, one member of which was arrested on child porn charges, and the list goes on. So he's a well-known thug and criminal. One of those guys that's all about law and order for everyone except me.
Right, just like fair and just punishment for
right.
everyone.
Everyone.
Treating everybody the same.
Except me. I'm above that. Oh, and as Schmidt was saying, Trump did pardon him, actually. During a Category 4 hurricane hitting Texas, he pardoned him with that sleazy old Washington trick. There's a trick they do in Washington where if you want to do something big, but brush it under the rug, when do you do it? You do it Friday afternoon. Because no one watches the news on a Friday afternoon, but everybody watches on Monday, and by the time Monday comes around, it's old news, so they're not playing it. They play it over the weekend when no one watches the news.
Or they do it during a big national event like that.
Right, exactly, which is conveniently on a weekend. So that's this guy who's running for Senate.
Got my vote.
And you wonder why the recidivism rate in the United States is so flipping high. It's
this man is a huge contribution to that.
Right, exactly. In the U.S., our recidivism rate is 77%, as compared to countries like Sweden, for example, where it's 40%. They have far less people in prison per capita. We actually have the most people in. For anyone who didn't know this, the United States has not only the most amount of people in prison, but the most amount of people in prison per capita. Yeah, land of the free. Cheers.
And fun fact: there are more people in prison for marijuana possession than there are violent crimes. Period.
Yep, all violent crimes combined, less than marijuana possession.
Draw your own conclusions from that.
Oh, exactly. We got our priorities.
We got priorities.
Yeah. Oh, but Sheriff Joe, he's not the only moron running for office in the near future. We got Oprah. Oprah is apparently considering. She's quote actively thinking about running for president.
This is one of the handful of celebrities who have pledged they're running in 2020. I'd like to give it up for my OG boy, Kanye. Yes. Kanye had the best presidential announcement of all time. The best presidential announcement of all time.
I'm the president's generation.
So I really want that to happen. Imagine a head-to-head race. Obviously, these are all going to be Democrats.
You say obviously.
The head-to-head race. Kanye, The Rock Johnson, and Oprah Winfrey.
I find that interesting that you say that they all run as Democrats. I mean, the only thing we know about Oprah, I mean, she gave a lovely speech at the Golden Globes the other day. It was lovely. It was fantastic. We all loved it.
Went all Trump there.
But just like the brilliant strategist over at CNN even admitted, we don't really know anything about her politics. Even though at CNN they still say she'd be a great candidate, even though they don't know her policies, which is literally the one and only thing that matters. But she'd be a great candidate. No idea what she stands for. She'd be great. But actually, I did a little bit of research because if someone says thinking about running for president, it's a pretty serious thing. I want to know what this person stands for, and there are only two issues. Only two issues I could find that Oprah had ever. And there's probably more out there, but all I could find, the two that she had ever really spoken openly about, was she was one for the Iraq War. That's smart. And then two, she's against the estate tax. Gee, I wonder why. For those of you who don't know, the estate tax is basically a tax. It's a tax on the rich. So anytime somebody passes away and leaves you $5.1 million or more, or I guess now with the new Trump tax plan, it's going to be like 10.2 or 11.1 million dollars, whatever. Any amount of money they give you over $5.1 million is taxed. Not all of it, of course. That would be silly, but a portion of it is taxed. So it literally only affects the top 1%, and Oprah is, of course, against that. But CNN does say that she is big-hearted. I did hear a strategist on CNN.
Right. We don't know any of her policies, but I think she would make a great president.
Her heart is huge.
Her heart is great.
I've seen
and
her.
She was in The Color Purple. She was so good in that. Oh my God, did you see that?
She's been on and off so many diets, I imagine her heart is pretty huge.
What is?
I mean, really, she doesn't think she doesn't have any opinions for herself. She's not even in politics.
What is it about this past few years and the past in the political landscape that has emboldened even like just these three celebrities to come forward and say, you know what, I could do a better job than this Dorito. In
fairness, I think Dwayne Johnson might have actually talked about a few issues though before. Oprah is.
I think he released an issue list, like a policy list.
Could you see if you could find that? Maybe.
Let me see.
Because the thing I think that makes Oprah really appealing to the Democrats though is she's basically a blank slate where you can just download your neoliberal mantra just into her brain, and she can spew that and then just get the votes because oh my God, she's black and a woman too. So she's a minority. She's a woman.
And she's already got a huge platform.
She's a billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
She's got her own fucking network, magazine. She's already built an empire.
No wonder.
Kind of like the Dorito we currently have in office.
Yes.
So it's...
That makes so much sense why the Democrats want her now.
It's a huge trampoline towards the top when you've already got a brand name that everybody knows. People know Donald Trump for years.
Oh, yeah.
Since the 70s, 80s is when I think he came into the public eye.
Yeah, it was huge.
And
I know it, everybody knows it.
He was the biggest.
He's the best, believe me. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it.
And if you think about it,
it's terrific, it's fantastic.
Him and Oprah, kind of have a similar background.
What?
In the sense that they built empires and they have all these huge media appearances and everyone knows their name.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Like Trump had the WWE.
He's obviously real estate in various businesses.
And WWE.
And WWE.
Lest we forget.
No, he's had a real estate and media empire. She's just had a media empire.
Trump steaks, dude.
I forgot about that. That was huge.
It was huge.
That was big.
Yeah.
It was really big when it went bankrupt.
I was so glad. I was so upset when they got rid of Trump steaks, though. They stopped selling them because no one fucking bought them.
From Sharper Image?
Right.
Was it Sharper Image?
Yeah. And airports. Who goes to
Why?
the airport to buy a frozen steak? Use your brain.
I wonder if they were any good.
He dips his steak in ketchup. Do you think they were good?
Was that seriously?
Yes.
That was Trump steaks? They dipped it in ketchup.
No. I'm saying Trump personally dips his steak in ketchup.
How do you know Trump's steak preferences?
This was huge news. Like everybody in the country knows this.
I think I may have known it, but just blocked it out because it's
Probably
so dumb.
smart. Well, I'm just saying, any guy who prefers ketchup on a steak, what kind of steak do you think that guy's making?
Yeah, that's a good point. You make a fair point there, buddy.
Let's use our brains a little bit. And speaking of using our brains, the state of Vermont gives a big middle finger to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and the state Senate for Vermont just passed a bill to legalize the use of marijuana recreationally. So let's just give a big thank you to Vermont. Vermont will actually be and also the Republican governor Phil Scott is expected to sign the bill. This will be the very first time marijuana has ever been legalized through the Senate vote as opposed to a ballot initiative.
Very significant.
Yeah, and the bill is pretty comprehensive. It allows anyone over the age of 21 to possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana. Sorry, they can also have up to 2 adult plants and 4 immature plants beginning on July 1st of this year. And it doesn't clear immediately the way for retail sales of weed. It kind of leaves that up to a commission that was created last year. They were tasked with taxing and regulating marijuana, but just the fact that they can possess it is amazing.
And the fact that it was passed through the Senate, does that mean that federal agents can't screw with Vermont now?
No.
Yeah, they can't because it's federal.
No, they can.
They can.
Yeah, they can. They absolutely can. Yeah, federal law is Trump state law. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter that it was passed through.
Not in the slightest. It's just crazy that it actually passed through Congress because that's literally never happened in our history. It's always just been on a ballot initiative. People say, yeah, I think people should be able to play with the plants in their own house because they're goddamn adults. And then there's the other people who say no. And we'll get to those people in a second. You know, in Colorado, they just they cut a check to everyone because there was a gigantic surplus of money from marijuana sales, just like across the board, like education. They were expected to get like $10 million a year or something, and they like tripled or quadrupled that the first couple of years.
Oh yeah, they're on cloud 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're doing very well, and it's obviously because of marijuana tax money.
Yeah, I mean, there's $485 million in tax revenue for the first 9 months of 2017 for just Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and Nevada. For just the first 5 states to legalize marijuana, just those 5, first 9 months of last year, $485 million in tax revenue. It's not even an entire year. Good job.
And we can't have that shit in our economy.
Oh
man.
no! I mean, if you look at the stats, marijuana is expected to increase the jobs by 300,000 in the next year. 300,000 new jobs in the next decade. Wow.
I mean, think about it. Yeah, you've got all different industries sprouting up from this. Obviously, you've got dispensaries. Now, think of all the things you can do with hemp. All the jobs that are created there by creating hemp clothing, rope, any type of
Plus
material.
Look, even here in the state of Arizona, where it's medicinally legal. I mean, people who use marijuana, most people don't smoke marijuana anymore. You vape it, you eat it, you drink it. They got weed soda, weed cookies. I mean, that's the thing I don't get, like Jeff Sessions' famous line, good people don't smoke marijuana.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
I agree, they vape it. You're right. It's better for your lungs. But it's crazy because it can massively reduce both the state and the federal deficit if it were legalized on a federal level. So there's a fiscal, conservative, and deficit hawk reason to be for marijuana. There's a pro-freedom and personal liberties reason, common sense reason, the reduction in crime reason. I mean, the Prohibition era, crime went way up. All of a sudden, you re-legalize alcohol. Oh, look at that. People stopped killing each other because they had bad beer meat in a toilet.
Yeah, you take that money away from cartels.
Right.
They're not getting up to anything positive.
Right, exactly. And unrelated news, Jeff Sessions just said he wants to do a big marijuana crackdown the other day. That's
Because
nice.
we really need to crack down on that. That's what we should be putting our tax dollars towards.
What would they do? Imagine if it were federally. They can't arrest everybody.
Dispensaries or.
Well, I mean, because right now, where marijuana is federally illegal, literally over 50% of people use marijuana in this country. It's over 50%. You can't arrest everybody, dumbass. It makes no sense to me.
So he's going to overpopulate our prisons even more.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Colorado and California combined, the amount of people that use marijuana there is already past the tipping point. You could not fit that many people in prison. The population of Colorado and California that use marijuana.
So he wants to take federal agents away from tackling more important tasks to go kick down some dispensaries' door and put those guys who were just regular working Americans in prison.
I hope he does. Just do it, dude. There's only so much bullshit people can put up with this administration, and that would be a great.
That would be the tipping point, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Actually, it's funny because a lot of people in the audience, maybe even, might be against marijuana use, and I find that very interesting. But it's really not that interesting. It actually makes a whole lot of sense why a lot of people might be against it. You see, back in 1930, the head of our DEA, Harry J. Anslinger, he was for the prohibition. He was a big staunch prohibitionist, and he had a lot of donors that were really for prohibition. Obviously, it helps a lot of different industries. Helps the tobacco industry. It helps the prison systems, the military industrial complex. It's a really good thing to have drugs people like banned. But he realized, oh crap, alcohol is going to become legal again. What am I going to do?
I don't have a scapegoat now.
I don't have a scapegoat, exactly. So what exactly did he do? Well, he blamed Mexicans because he realized that Americans have. If you don't believe me, wait just 1 minute. But he blamed Mexicans, saying that Mexicans smoke marijuana and that made them like rape and kill people, and that scared the American people so much that the southern states actually started referring to the plant as the marijuana menace. And they banned the use of marijuana because of the fact that they thought it made minorities attack people. And if you don't believe me, here are some actual quotes from Harry Anslinger, either written by him in newspapers or spoken by him. And I haven't shown these to Schmidt, so I want to get Schmidt's actual reaction to some of this crap that he said. Direct quotes in the early 1930s. Quote, "There are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S., and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana use. This marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relation with Negroes, entertainers, and any others."
Can't have that.
God damn. Wait, so...
And that's the bluntest thing.
Wait, marijuana made jazz? All right, cool. Is that supposed to be... Or how about this one? The primary reason to outlaw marijuana is its effects on the degenerate races.
Degenerate races. Who is this guy again? Just outline that a little more.
Harry Anslinger. He was the head of the DEA. So he was appointed into the government to run people. Marijuana
people
is
like that at the top.
Right. Quote, "Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death." We know obviously now it's not an addictive drug since we've invented the MRI. Here's a good one. You'll love this one. Imagine hearing the head of the DEA saying this nowadays. "Reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white men."
Reefer makes
darkies. Marijuana leads to pacifism and communist brainwashing. You smoke a joint and you're likely to kill your brother. And finally, marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind.
And that argument, it's still around. Jeff Sessions himself still makes this argument, along with a couple of his cronies.
It's not debatable.
No, it's not.
These aren't debatable arguments.
Just look at stats, bro.
It is a fact. Marijuana is not addictive. I could show you that in 2 minutes with a CT. It is a fact that it is not a gateway drug. It is a fact that you can't die from... Okay, hold on. I actually wrote this down because this is crazy. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, 0 people have died from marijuana. That everyone knows that. As opposed to opioids, where over 28,000 people died in 2014. Or in the United States, about 88,000 people die every year from alcohol. So good. Making alcohol the 4th leading preventable cause of death in the U.S. Aspirin can kill you too, actually, really easily. But anyway, here's the crazy thing. You can overdose from marijuana. And this is how you would do it. Within a 15-minute period, the average person, 65, 68 kilograms, whatever, the average person would have to smoke 1,500 pounds in 15 minutes.
How many doobies that would be?
It is, according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, a physical impossibility for any human. It's actually, and I did.
Unless you're the Flash.
I tried to do some math and convert it because to the space shuttle, they use the NASA shot off in the 80s. How much fuel it burned compared to the rate at which it burned fuel compared to the rate at which you'd have to smoke the weed, and it's pretty similar. So you basically have to literally smoke like a rocket for 15 straight minutes, and then you have the chance of overdose. So anybody who's ever used that argument, one, find an argument against marijuana that also isn't applicable to alcohol, and two, opioid overdose is a really big deal. People, like I said, 28,000 people died in 2014. People die every year. You know what's a really good way to get off of opioids? Marijuana. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it helps with cancer and seizures and headaches and hypothyroidism and
appetite for chemo patients.
Yep. There's also appetite suppressors if you're trying to be on a diet. Any kind of inflammation, even joint inflammation. Sure, it's good for all that. But if you're trying to get off of an addictive substance, marijuana is the way to go.
But that gets you, it could get you up to 20 years in prison.
Yep, up to 20 years in a federal prison.
For just having it.
For having a plant found on the ground. Don't forget that. It's a plant. And also in the beautiful, happy world of medicine, we have actually some pretty recent news. I don't know if you heard about this, out of Cuba. Raw Story.
I heard about this.
Raw Story and Global Post reported on a very important healthcare issue, I think. And that is Cuba has a lung cancer vaccine, but many U.S. patients can't get it without breaking the law. Oh boy. So Cuba now has this vaccine to help people with lung cancer. Cuba invented it. The United States does not. Cuba has it. The United States does not. And people travel to Cuba from the U.S. for treatment, obviously, because a lot of people have lung cancer, not just from smoking, but you can just develop lung cancer just in general. I mean, obviously, lung cancer is not as big of a deal in the United States as it is in Europe, since people don't smoke here or drink here nearly like they do in Europe, but it's still a pretty big deal.
We don't know how to have fun.
Right, yeah. Random stat, did you know for every one drink the average American has, the average Brit has 11?
I think of that Jack Whitehall joke that goes something like, I was in L.A. And I was at dinner, and I overheard conversations like this. Did you hear that Larry had 3 glasses of wine for dinner? I think he might be an alcoholic. To which he says, 3 glasses of wine for dinner makes you an alcoholic in America. In the UK, it makes you the designated driver.
Yeah. Yeah,
they drink a lot, basically.
Yeah, they got a lot of problems with that in the UK, unfortunately. And they drive on the wrong side of the road. Pretty interesting. No, I'm just kidding. 13% of the population of the world drives on the left. A whopping 13. Anyway, so Trump is reversing a lot of the Obama-era rules when it comes to traveling to Cuba. He's cracking down on Cuba. So it's illegal to go to Cuba now for medical reasons. And also, you now need a government-approved tour guide to go with you if you plan to visit Cuba. Did you know that? You literally need a government-approved tour guide. And these are vaccines, by the way. Vaccines which need to be kept at a certain temperature. So if you wanted to travel with these vaccines, they'd have to be kept in some sort of a cooler and everything. So it's not like you can just grab some and take them home with you in your pocket. Even that, it's illegal to do that. Which is
a life-saving drug is illegal.
Right, a life-saving drug is illegal.
Does it sound familiar?
Yep. And as a result of sheer politics and the Republicans' disapproval of Cuba adapting to U.S. imperialism, now many patients will be suffering from lung cancer now. And, they might die much sooner. So why cut a deal with Cuba? Why allow Americans to travel for the purpose of using the vaccine? Why would we do that? We don't care about your life. We just don't. We care about the bullshit political issue of making Cuba submit to U.S. imperialism. That's really what's important here. This is the treatment for lung cancer. There's nothing going on in Sweden or Germany or Australia. Cuba has it. They are now the epitome of what to do for someone who has malignant tumors in their lungs. It's crazy. The same government who has put dying cancer patients on trial for possession of marijuana now says you can't go to Cuba for some vaccines.
Wonder what his motivations are there.
I can't imagine. The decision from the Trump administration is a mix of a bunch of different things, really. It's not just idiocy or ignorance, I think, but listening to the military-industrial complex, being in a perpetual standoff with Cuba. We all know the history with Cuba, right? We're all paid attention at school. We had a U.S.-backed dictator, and then there was a revolution where the people of Cuba and Fidel Castro overthrew the U.S.-backed dictator. And then we're so butthurt that our puppet was overthrown that decades later, we're like, no! We're not going to talk to you. We can't have a deal with you. It's happening right now. Is anything going on with us in Cuba? No. We're just pissed because they
don't like them.
Yeah, they overthrew our dictator that we put in there. What the hell? And I'm not casting aside Fidel Castro's laundry list of problems. But I am saying, why are we holding a grudge? It's the same thing with Iran. We overthrew, what was his name? Mohammed Masadi? What was his name? Yeah. Mohammed Masadi in 1953. And then the CIA put in the Shah, which is just a puppet to the U.S. that we could jack their oil and Britain could jack their oil. And then there's the Islamic Revolution. Not to say that the current leaders or the Ayatollah are good, but why hold a grudge because of people of a nation wanting to run their own country? Just because, I guess. And if it's not stupid enough at face value, look at the results of holding on to these grudges. You're actually putting American lives at risk. And you're hurting Americans. The fact is, they invented it. We didn't. So, good for them. Good job, Cuba, inventing something that's actually helping people. Now I think it's our government's responsibility to make sure that the people of our nation also have access to it. But instead, they're actively preventing access. That's interesting. And if you know what, if there's there might be a lot of people out there that have personal issues against Cuba and Fidel Castro, and I understand that. And you know what? If human rights violation in Cuba are your objections, may I point you in the direction of one of our top allies, Saudi Arabia, or Israel, which is in an apartheid state doing illegal occupation for decades now. Everything post 1967 is actually illegal land that they had stolen, and look what Saudi Arabia is doing to Yemen. But no, that's totally fine because they're in business deals with us. They're part of the status quo. They submitted to U.S. imperialism, but Cuba? No. Sure, they're not as much of a humanitarianism. Wow, I've had a little too much to drink here right at the beginning. They're not as much of a humanitarian disaster as Saudi Arabia, but we can't allow that. We can't allow it even to the point where we're gonna make it hard for you to get your lung cancer vaccine to continue to survive. I mean, you want a story about playing with human lives? I mean, there you go, right there. I can't think of a clearer example of the government just straight up not caring about human lives. Hey, we have this thing that can help people, and all the people of your country have to do is just want to go get it. And then the government actively comes in and says no.
I would like to hear their official explanation for that. That might be entertaining.
The only things I could see coming out of the right were just anti-Fidel Castro and anti-Cuba rhetoric. It's the same. It's the same thing with the Clintons. Remember in the campaign with the saber rattling with Russia? It's like we're still in the Cold War. You know, people can't get over stuff that happened in the past. We hold grudges for no discernible reason.
Yeah, and I think it affects our ability to peacefully deal with the world.
Oh yeah, it does. But I mean, the worst part is it's not even. Unfortunately, it's not even like just foreign politics. I mean, even our politics here at home, we clearly don't care about the average person. I mean, look at the minimum wage. I think I had to write this down because I know this stat off the top of my head, but I have to read it because I almost don't believe it. The federal minimum wage in the United States is $7.25 an hour. $7.25 an hour. Federal. Yeah, that's the minimum. And in a lot of states, most states actually, if you're a tipped worker, often they get paid less. Sometimes it's anywhere between $2 and $3 per hour.
I normally see $3.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And for all you non-Americans out there, in America we tip. It's just a great way to shortchange servers, inconvenience customers, and worsen the dining experience. But it's actually a pretty new tradition. Actually, we haven't been tipping for very long. It just kind of started like 90 years ago, let's say. Yeah, around there. It was just less than 100 years ago. But in the U.S., back in the day, paying for better service, it used to be considered an undemocratic form of bribery. But after the Prohibition era, restaurants took a huge hit on profits since most of what they sold, was alcohol, or at least the most expensive stuff they sold was usually alcohol. So they started requiring tips to their workers so that they wouldn't have to pay them a decent wage. They literally lobbied to Congress, hey, we're going to pay them less because we'll have people pay them. Which is actually funny because there are still a lot of people today. I have friends that are servers and people who work those jobs, and they always say things like, oh, well, it's good because it forces me to work harder because, I work harder and I get better tips, do a good job and you get better tips. You do a bad job, you get bad tips, Yeah, it's not true. It's not true at all. Actually, a study done at Cornell showed that people don't tip more when they get better service. On the contrary, reasons for tipping are completely random, and consumers who receive extraordinary service just tip 1% more on average than customers who did not have a good experience.
Right. I'd imagine it'd be more like the cause of a higher tipper would be just that they're maybe more agreeable, more generous person from the get-go. Sure. It has nothing to do with the server.
Or they were brainwashed into thinking that tipping is normal, like a lot of Americans are. Like, oh, you have to tip 15%. You have to tip 20%. And they don't question why. They just go along with it. And they never question. Which is really weird. There are actually a lot of tipless restaurants nowadays, which is cool. You no longer have to worry about tipping, like in Europe and the rest of the entire planet. I was actually just in last month. I was in a few countries in Europe. I was in England, France, Germany. When I was in France, I went to this pub and I asked this guy to make me whatever his favorite drink was. I just wanted to try it, and he made me this drink. It was some kind of vodka cocktail of sorts, and it tasted exactly like liquid gummy bears, and it was delicious. And I wanted to tip him, even though I knew it wasn't normal, just because I just wanted to. It was a good drink, and I had a bunch of coins in my pocket. 3 of them were €2 coins, and I thought, why does physical money still exist in this country? That's a bit silly.
I don't want it anymore.
Right, exactly. But 2, why
just threw it at him?
Why is it coins? Coins are heavy. €2 in a coin? That's retarded, and that's coming from someone who lives in a country where we can't go to Cuba to help our lungs. That's silly. But so I just gave him all 3 of my my €2 coins, and he looked at me like I just like repainted his car or something. I just gave him €6 for a drink, and that's the way it should be, you know. I come in to buy a thing, right? You go to a restaurant because you want to buy a product, so you have to pay for that product. You pay for that thing, but you also have a separate charge for one of the random workers who aided in your purchase of that product. So you pay 2 transactions for one thing. But as Americans, we just nod our heads and say yes. We don't stop and think, wait a minute, this is dumb.
It's because it's so ingrained. Yeah, we don't question it.
But why would it, but I'm saying, like, why would it be ingrained? Day one, somebody says, hey, let's tip. I did. As a kid, I was like, this is dumb. There's no what? Do we also tip the guy who hands us a toy at Toys R Us? The people who like check you out at the clerk?
Yeah, I've always wondered why it's certain industries, like hospitality, obviously.
Lobbyists. Mm-hmm. Because of lobbyists. And then there's there's the whole what's that? The replace with machines argument. The automation that everyone on the right fears. Schmidt and I, we've had conversations about automation and how it's ultimately going to benefit the world. Because right now, people think very short term. They think minimum wage jobs and driving jobs are going to be replaced with robots. There's going to be less jobs for people.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't realize. They think about the horse and buggy, how huge that was.
Right.
And Ford came along,
Yep,
made his car, and everyone's like, no, we can't possibly do that. So many people are going to be out of the job. Then people got the fuck over it.
Right. And new jobs are created.
Yeah.
There's new technologies.
And then we got used to it.
Right.
And now that's going the way of the horse and buggy,
right.
And it's just gonna keep stacking. We're gonna get better and better, and jobs are gonna get cut, but jobs are also going to get created. It levels out in the long run.
And you know, I hate to bring this up with you guys because I know for some reason people fear automation so much. But someday in the future, no one's gonna have a job. Like, you know that, right? Like, eventually, we're going to have technology good enough to do everything. And that scares people because people don't stop and think. But imagine a world like that. You're born. Everything's done by computers, robots, whatever. There's no money. There doesn't have to be. There's no countries. We're just called Earth. Maybe another planet will be called Mars, because we would have colonized places by that. You just grow up and do whatever you want. Right now, by the time you're 18, you need to have finished your education. Because if you didn't, I mean, your life is what? A sixth, a seventh of the way over? I mean, it's time, with like modern medicine. But it's time to hurry up. Everything's like really fast paced. But if you could just live life, I'm
doing the things that you love
whatever
to do.
you want to do.
Yeah.
Like what
you live in
like?
a Star Trek universe.
Right. Like, I like photography. Cool. Take photos your whole life. Travel. Do whatever you want. Go see other planets. Do whatever you want. That's going to be the future. And the only way to get there is to start getting rid of jobs now. I mean, we're not going to get there for maybe 5, 6, 7, 800 years, whatever. It's not.
It's a bit down the line.
Right. It's not going to be in our lifetimes, obviously, or even our kids' lifetimes. But it's going to happen.
James Kirk's going to be able to benefit from it.
But it's going to happen. So why do people fight progress? Oh, and how about this? So I did say that the minimum wage is only $7.25, and obviously that's not a living wage.
We're moving forward positively. Obviously, most states.
Well, yes, but federally we're doing a terrible job, and there are still a lot of people that say, "Oh, well, if you raise the minimum wage, the price of everything is going to go up." And there was a study done actually. That was showing the change of a cost of a Big Mac. I don't have the exact numbers on me. I think a Big Mac meal now is like $5 something or $4 something, $4 and something cents, $5 something cents in that area. And they estimated that if I don't remember what state they did it in. You could probably look it up, but at the time the minimum wage was like $9.50 or $10. And they estimated that if they raised it to $15 an hour, which they then did. The average cost of a Big Mac went up by 17 cents. Yeah.
That's going to break the bank right there.
Meta-analyses show that increasing the minimum wage not only doesn't cost jobs, but it makes life better for the low paid. It doesn't cause unemployment, no matter what big business tries to claim. That's also from The Guardian, too. But all states that have raised the minimum wage have either seen no change in unemployment or unemployment decreased. Because there's this little thing people forget about called the velocity of money. And it's basically this idea that an economy has... Okay, we're going to explain it like I'm 5. An economy has money, right? Let's say you got two kinds of people. This is very simplistic, but it's easy to follow, I think. Two kinds of people. You got the homeless guy, and you got Bill Gates. So the economy works when money is put into it. So if I were to give a homeless guy $100, what's he going to do? He's going to spend it. He has to. He doesn't have money. Any money he gets, he's going to have to spend it. So that money goes right back into the economy. Well, that's the velocity of money. It helps push the economy forward. Now let's say I give that same $100 bill to Bill Gates. It sits in a bank account and does nothing. Because he already has so much money. He can't spend the money that he has. So it hurts the economy for Bill Gates to get more money. Not him specifically. This is obviously just an example. And people forget that. Like, who does the minimum wage help? The people who are making minimum wage. It's going to give them more money, which they will then have to spend because they're not making a living wage. And people are actually underpaid. If you tied wage to productivity from when the minimum wage was created, the minimum wage today would have to be just over $21 an hour federally. And they've actually done a meta-analysis to show that too. The average McDonald's employee profits McDonald's like $22 or $23. Not makes them, profits after paying for the electricity and everything. So they could easily afford to pay them $21, $22, $23 an hour. McDonald's. And McDonald's sells $1 burgers. And people say like $15, it's going to break the bank. They're to close shop. They're to close shop. Except for every place it happens, it's not the case. How about Australia? Has anyone ever heard of that little country, Australia? Their minimum wage is $18 an hour about. And their unemployment is 5.4%, which is normal. How they do that?
No positive.
It's kind of magical, isn't it?
Isn't California experimenting with that, or have they not in the past?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything out of California. I know Nevada has been pretty ahead on a lot of things. Like they had the experiment where they housed every homeless person. Then they found 80% of homeless people, when given a home, cleaned themselves up and got a full-time job and contributed to the economy. Plus, it costs $9,000 a year to house a homeless person, and it costs $19,000 a year to not house them because they have to go to the hospital a lot, get in contact with the police. So you save money by housing homeless people. But we're not going to do that because fuck poor people. Even though it literally saves money. And gets crime off the street. And gets people off the street. I don't want I hate when homeless people come up to me on the street.
I like to think that it's easy to paint lawmakers in a negative, like, evil light. But I like...
Easy.
What?
They make it easy.
Yeah, they do. However, it's helpful to think, why are they thinking like this? And I think it's because they think very short term.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's like asking a fish how the water is. The corruption is so thick in Washington, they're just used to it. If you ask a fish what's the water like, it's gonna say, "What are you talking about? That's just how the world is. The world is water."
And change is very scary to people in positions of power because they figured their current system out.
Right. I mean,
they figured the system out. They don't want it to change because then they have to figure out a new system.
Sure. As some random senator, you're making like $250,000 a year from the government, but also you got all these big money donors that are paying you thousands, sometimes millions of dollars. And where does all that money go? That goes to take your wife on holiday, gets your kids a nice present for Christmas, whatever. And that has to be the way to rationalize it. Like, hey, you know what? Sure, what I'm doing is screwed up, but you know what? Someone's going to do it. If not me, it's going to be someone. So it may as well be me so I can provide for my family. Maybe that's not exactly what some people think, but I could easily see that as a rationale behind, someone's going to do it. May as well be me. But you know what? Another thing that I think a lot of conservatives forget, what happens when you pay people under a living wage? People are going to get a living wage. They're going to get it from one of two places. They're going to get it from their employer, or they're going to get it from the taxpayers through government assistance programs, welfare, food stamps, what have you. And so you're basically sick because they're going to get the money because they have to live. So who do you want to pay employees? Employers or the taxpayers? And it comes down to that. And it shouldn't have to, but I mean, you can't use examples and statistics and stuff because obviously all the facts and all the meta-analysis are on our side, and they clearly don't care about facts. So it becomes a thought process, I think. And that's my thought process for you, my little experiment. Would you rather Walmart pay their employers, or would you rather pay? I'd rather Walmart pay.
But they don't make as much money.
Yeah, you're right. They make less profits.
Yeah, we can't have that.
Right.
So I'm gonna send my lobbyists to mosey on up to DC now.
That would be a big cut because a lot of people, especially CEOs, make anywhere between $2 and $8.5 zillion a year.
Precisely that. Yeah, that's economist numbers.
Right, exactly. 2 to 8.5 whatever what the hell I said. Speaking of economics, I actually got a little bit of some millennial economics here that I wanted to talk about. Vice reports a depressing new analysis. Millennials, also known as Generation Y, Gen Y. Millennials, if somehow you don't know, those are people born between the years 1981 and 1997. So millennials are apparently way poorer than baby boomers, also known as Gen X, people born between 1946 and 1964. They are poorer than baby boomers ever were, making 20% less than what baby boomers made at the same age. They said after looking at the 2013 Federal Reserve data for 25 to 34-year-olds and comparing it with the same age group back in 1989, they found that millennials are making a median income of around $40,000 a year, a whopping 20% drop from what the baby boomers were earning when they were just starting out. Baby boomers also had twice the number of assets that millennials have now, and millennials are more burdened by student loans and less likely to own a home, choosing to move back in with their parents. Despite being well educated, they are entering into the job market during one of the worst recessions since the Great Depression, and that has resulted in lower starting wages, which could lead to an overall stunted standard of living. They also go on to include solutions to remedy the problem, such as raising the minimum wage, requiring paid family medical leave, providing more apprenticeship for middle-class jobs, etc. I'd say they could also make a New Deal as well, bring back strong unions. But this is all irrelevant because of the stock market. I mean, that's what all the Republicans tell me. I mean, look, the stocks are up. And I think that's a little bit of a fallacious and kind of intellectually dishonest way to measure the success of a nation. I mean, because if you look at it, 80% of stocks are owned by the top 10%. I mean, need I say more? I mean, stocks, if anything, are just a reflection of the rich and reflections of corporations, and that is it. Corporation profits are at an all-time high, but wages are stagnant. And you can praise the stock market success until you're blue in the face, but the reality is the people of this country are struggling. Maybe not the top 10%. But now,
but most people,
right now, both millennials and centennials are people born after 1997. Both millennials and centennials are graduating into a recession that's almost as bad as the Great Depression, and resulting in lower starting wages. But that's fair because they're lazy.
Minimum wage people.
Oh yeah, they're all lazy millennials.
Obviously,
that's why they make 20% less, despite the fact. Quote. Despite being the largest and best educated generation in the country, millennials are far worse off financially than the baby boomers.
Do you happen to have the stats of how many millennials end up moving back home in their 20s?
I don't actually have that. Do you?
No. You see, I'm trying to Google it, and I think it's already it's already net neutrality in the. In the process of working, because my internet's being kind of retarded.
Did you?
But I'm sure it's much more than past generations.
You didn't pay the extra $5 to get in the fast pass lane for Google?
For the conspiracy theory
Conspiracy theory package.
the conspiracy theory package.
Yeah. I got that through Time Warner.
Yeah. No, for me they actually charged me $15, but it's still not working, so I'm guessing I'm gonna have to pay an additional $20.
I would do that, yeah.
Yes.
For that Google search. What great ideas the baby boomers have. Yeah, because we're all lazy, well-educated dumbasses. But hey, you know, who are those geniuses that spent $7 trillion in Iraq, the war in Iraq? Or how about $2 trillion in the war in Afghanistan? Or the over $500 billion on over 900 military bases across the world every single year? Whilst our infrastructure gets a grade of D+, and you crash the economy through neoliberalism, deregulation, tax cuts for the rich, and corporate welfare checks. Yeah, you let corporations rig our government, rig our laws in favor of corporations and the rich, while you screw over working people. All the while, unions are at an all-time low. The minimum wage isn't even a living wage. If you remember, we just talked about that 2 seconds ago. Which is weird because it was intended to be a living wage, but they just didn't happen to tie it to inflation. Must have slipped their mind. And
Right, that's what happened.
Yeah, there has been a war in the middle class ever since the 1980s. Oh, and it's brilliant.
I wanted to pull up a fact, but it's legitimately not letting me.
What are you trying to find out?
I'm trying to find out how many millennials move back home compared to people back in the day.
Let's see if we can find that on the old interwebs. Millennials have been called the basement generation because of so many of them. This is New York Post. Oh, yeah. About 1 in 3 millennials live with their parents in 2015.
What was that? 1 out of 3?
Yeah, 1 out of 3.
That
doesn't mean much though, because in 2015, some millennials were under the age of 18. Yeah, I don't know. Well, anyway, it's still. I would find it believable that it is that high.
Yeah, even anecdotally. Yeah, so many of my friends, I'm 23 or 24.
Right.
So many of my friends have had to move back home. You know, I've been on the precipice myself. I've had friends who haven't moved, who are like 29 and still can't move out of their parents because it's just not possible for them to get financially stable, even with a bachelor's degree. One of my friends has a bachelor's degree at 29. He's still at home.
Oh yeah, I was trying to tell. I'll pull up a calculator right now. I'll do really quick math for you. I was trying to tell this guy a little while back when Arizona was talking about raising the minimum wage to $12 an hour, which is still not a living wage. But at the time when it was put to $10 an hour, I remember he was saying, I'm not gonna say who it was, but as a friend of mine, he was saying that it was a terrible thing and people don't need that much, and I can live off of minimum wage, no problem. It's like, well, great about you single, childless person. I mean, even and I said, you know what? Even if you didn't have a child, even if you were single and all you had to care about was yourself, think about just averages. So the average cost of an apartment in the Phoenix area is a little over $1,000. Let's say it's $1,000. Average cost of healthcare for someone in their 20s is about $100 in Phoenix. The average phone bill is also an additional $100. The average groceries is $400. So far you got the 1,000, you got the 100, you got the 400, you got the other 100. So that puts you at $1,600 so far. And we didn't even include, let's say you got to make a car payment because you had to buy a car so you could get to work. So that's a $200 car payment, very reasonable. You got to pay insurance on that.
Probably average.
Yep. Insurance on that car for someone in their 20s is going to be high because you're financing it. So let's say $100 for insurance. So we're already at $1,900. And there's still so much more. I'm not even going to put anything else. I'm going to say just $1,900. So let's say you worked... it's $1,900. That's in 1 month. Let's multiply that by 12. That'll give us 12 months. That's $22,800. Okay. Divide that by 52. That's how many weeks are in a year. And divide that by 40. 40 hours in a week. That's full time. Just to be able to afford what I just said, a few averages, not even the total cost of living, just like food and basic stuff. That doesn't include utilities. I didn't throw that in there. Savings, emergency fund. You would have to make $10.97 an hour after tax to be able to barely scrape by And I didn't even include, like I said, emergency funds, savings funds, life insurance.
That's just a barely live.
But not even to barely live. That's just like 4 random things that came to my head that you need to pay for, of like the 80 or 8,000 zillion things everyone has to pay for on a monthly basis. Like I said, I didn't even throw in utility.
And most people with a bachelor's degree aren't gonna make that. They're gonna people who are going to school.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially tough for them because I know because I'm in that boat, working full time and then being a full time.
You don't even take out student loans.
Yeah.
You are not in that boat. You're not in that boat at all.
Well, no. I try to pay for everything up front, but it's especially it's still difficult for people who take out student loans. They can't even. Some people can't even afford to do the student loans, or some people can't even afford to eat,
right.
Let alone try to pay everything off up front.
Plus, a few of these kids are trying to be like doctors and lawyers and stuff where you actually have to pay attention in school and do well so you can get into graduate school. And then you have to do well in graduate school. I mean, graduate loan's a little bit different. That's a different story. But for undergrads, which is the majority of people, it's just insane that we don't, our country doesn't value education as an asset. We see it as
Commodity.
Right. It's a commodity.
Yeah. It's
But
like something to be bartered, and because we see it that way, I think administrators are comfortable tacking on so much to tuition because of amenities.
Right. Exactly. I'm gonna grab some more booze real quickly.
Yeah, I think it's mostly amenities. Like football stadiums. Say you want a new terrace that you can study in. College has got to be competitive. They've got to be competitive. They've got to have the best facilities, the best professors. To say I want James Franco to teach my acting class. That's NYU. That's not a public university, so I suppose that doesn't really apply. But the fact is, it seems as though schools are racing for amenities, and I think that's why. I don't know, TJ, if you have any concrete facts on that. My fact finding machine is not working. How many people or how much has tuition raised just in the past decade?
Oh,
let's give that a Google.
I mean, if we really want to look at this comparison, look at how it changed since the 80s. Let's get a good little Google. In tuition. Let's see if we can pull that up. Here we go. There's a chart from Business Insider. There's also one from BBC. We'll take a look at that next. And Business Insider is garbage. It's a very simple question. Just want an answer. I know it's been seen before.
No. Nobody's ever Googled this before.
Oh, hey, we're cheap. Hey, we're still cheaper than England, though.
Oh, God. I don't want to know.
This is comparing countries. The most expensive tuition in the world is U.S. private. Next is England, full stop. Then is the U.S. public. That's interesting. Oh, here we go. Average tuition fees by institute type from 1980 to 2011. That's interesting. So, oh my God. Okay, so
that sounds promising.
That is very.
Lay it on me.
So the average tuition, and remember, you do have to adjust for inflation. But nope, this chart actually does adjust for inflation. Oh, worse than I thought. Okay, so in 1980, the cost of a public four-year tuition, four-year school, was about annually $2,119. $2,119, as opposed to in 2010, we're at average $7,605.
One more time.
In 1980, the average tuition for a public four-year university was $2,119. In 2010,
So it is more than tripled.
yeah, 3 years later, it has more than tripled. 30 years later.
It has to. Yeah,
After adjusting for inflation.
Yeah, it has to be that. Yeah.
We're in the money.
Oh, yeah. Schools are adding a lot more. They have to get bigger, right? I think it's like treating it like a business. You know how a business always has to grow. You know, McDonald's. You were mentioning that earlier. That started out with just a couple of hamburgers.
But why is education a business?
And then it grew, and that's exactly what's happening with education.
But why?
Is they have to keep getting bigger and bigger to attract more students. They have to weigh on the amenities so that students go there. ASU, which is around the area that we live.
Yep.
That rated one of the most innovative schools.
The most.
Number one innovative school in the U.S.
Yep.
You know, they have to keep touting shit like that. And ASU is one of the cheaper schools, but it's still ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
as far as tuition goes.
I've seen people pay tuition of over $10,000 easily, and like that's just the tuition. Doesn't include books. Doesn't include parking.
That's for how long? A semester.
A year.
That's a year. Okay.
A year. Yeah, over $10,000 for tuition alone. But then there's taxes on that. Yeah, you get a lot of money back for your tax returns and stuff, which is another weird thing that we do. We'll talk about that in a later episode. But it's insane, the cost of tuition, because studies show it's a proven fact that the more well-educated a population, the more productive it is. It helps the economy to educate more people, obviously, because then people can go on and get better jobs and make more money and then pay more in taxes. Ladoy.
And throw more of that money back into the economy.
Exactly.
Yep, it's a cycle.
It's straightforward, but somehow it's not.
Yeah, I don't know where that attitude sprung up. It had to be within the last 50, 60 years.
But look at this chart, probably the past 30-something years. Yeah. Looks like there's a big spike in 1991, 1992. That's when it really started jumping up. Great. So by the time we were popping out, I was a C-section, but around that time.
When you were eviscerated out.
Exactly. I wasn't coming out that way. That got weird. I guess around that time. It's just about price went up. But the price of public 2-year schools hasn't remained stagnant, but it comparatively, I mean, in same years 1980 to 2010.
This is community colleges.
Essentially, yeah, public community colleges. Tuition went from $1,031 to $2,713. Yeah, more than doubled.
That's why you should always go to those schools first.
Yeah, depending.
I mean, I guess quality of education could be debated.
I mean, I think it depends more on your professor too. I'm in my German class. My professor, she's from Germany. The way she teaches, I always find it interesting because she's always asking how people are doing if they have questions, and any kind of failure she sees as a reflection upon her inability to teach, not on the students, and I find that interesting. But she's one of my best teachers I've ever had. Actually, it's really easy to learn with her. She actually cares about the style in which she teaches.
But you don't know. You don't know what you're getting with a community college. But still, if you want to be able to afford school, that's currently what I'm doing, is paying it all off up front, paying for the classes up front at a community college, getting all the huge stuff out of the way.
Oh, I like the English 101 and all that crap no one wants to do.
Yep.
Speaking of English and German, now is a good time to break off into our Word of the Day segment.
Oh boy!
Yay! Don't sound too excited. Today we're going to go over 2 words, one in English, one in German, because we brought up both of those languages. So let's head over on to dictionary.com.
Ich liebe Deutschland.
Okay. And let's see. Today's word of the day.
I love Germany.
Good. Today's word of the day is... What is that? Vatic? Vatic. It's an adjective.
Vatic.
Huh. Of or relating to or characteristic of a prophet. Okay. So you could say Ted Cruz.
He's the modern day prophet.
He is. God damn it.
Brought down by God himself.
And in the
What a
world,
saint that man is.
in the world of transparent.com, their German word of the day, since we got Vatic out of English, we're gonna get
Vatic.
die Mathematik. Math. Oh boy. Wow, that was a really fun segment, you guys. We got an adjective that describes a prophet.
Mathematic.
Fucking math.
Wow, math. That German is so hard to learn if you're an English speaker.
Nothing. They also everything sounds so different.
Wasser, water.
Yeah, we're swimming. Wir schwimmen.
Vishvin.
Yeah. Chocolate and blonde hair. Chocolate und blond hair.
I wonder what that
Blond
means.
hair. Ja. Ich weiß es nicht. Anyway, off of that nonsense, back to the world of politics for 1 minute. Just one final thing I did want to bring up in the world of politics is something I've always found very interesting. So we live in the state of Arizona, Sheriff Joe Arpaio's motherland, and Senator John McCain as well. May his glioblastoma hurry up. And we are now just get it over with. That's what I'm saying. Don't be an ass about it, Jesus. But something we love here in the state of Arizona. Did you know the state of Arizona is the most gun-friendly state in the United States? If you didn't know that, you don't have eyes, because everybody here has a gun, always. And if you're not carrying a gun, that's because you got a gun concealed somewhere. I was gonna say in your pants, but that. Anyway, and you know
it's
what?
It's the wild, wild west out here.
It is the wild, wild west, and it's funny because it all comes down to, in the United States, we have a constitution. Obviously, we have amendments to that constitution. The first 10 amendments are called the Bill of Rights. The second amendment on that Bill of Rights is the Second Amendment, which is our right to bear arms. The right to bear arms. So what is this whole Second Amendment about? I just want to talk a little bit with you guys about the Second Amendment, because personally, I'm a gun owner.
Pew.
Kablamo, exactly.
Blammo.
I own a few guns. I have a 9mm pistol, a 357 mag with a 3/8 inch barrel, 20 gauge shotgun. I used to have an AR-15. Sold to a friend. And I bought actually the 357 Magnum. I purchased when I was 19. You have to be 21 in the state of Arizona to buy a pistol, unless you're buying it used from a friend. Or someone you know, or someone you met on Craigslist. Then it's 18. Not kidding. It's part of the
No way around that law.
gun show loophole. Yeah, it's great. But no, I did get it when I was 19, which is kind of cool. But anyway, in the United States, a lot of people on the right likes to say that the Second Amendment was made as a last line of defense against tyranny. But many Americans may be surprised to find out that that's not the meaning behind the Second Amendment at all. So, what is the Second Amendment? But even if it was made so that people could defend themselves against a tyrannical government, I don't know if you know this, Schmidt. The U.S. government has tanks, has bombers, has drones. And sure, drones miss over 90% of the time, but they're drones, no less. So if the government wanted you dead, it doesn't matter what firearms you have, because you will never own an F-22. So if that was
And
the point,
if you do, what are you doing?
We're on a different subject. We're no longer talking about whatever people think we're talking about whenever we're talking about the right to bear arms. But the Second Amendment actually had two purposes, and I think you might find this very interesting. And I think you should listen up if you've never heard this, because it's a rich part of our history. It had two purposes. It started as one idea, actually, but then it later became adapted into two ideas in the eyes of our founders. So the original intent for the Second Amendment was about standing armies. Thomas Jefferson knew, looking at history, that standing armies were always a threat to the government remaining stable, as they had the potential to overthrow a government. And that happened often throughout history. So by law, when armies return from overseas, they actually have to disband. That's law. And that's why they can form their own militias in their own states, because they have to disband when they return home. And that was kind of the first idea. It's that they didn't want the government overthrown. They didn't want armies coming back and then fighting against the government. So the idea that we could fight against the government is not only wrong, it is literally the opposite of the case. So that's fun. But then, here's where it gets really good. Patrick Henry from Virginia, one of our founding fathers, and also he was also the largest slave owner in the state of Virginia too. Fun fact. He wrote about this, and so did George Mason. By the way, same thing. Founding father, slave owner from Virginia. But they went back and forth with Thomas Jefferson, saying, look, we're afraid that Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which of course is the General Welfare Clause, they were afraid that it could be interpreted to free the slaves. And there was a legitimate fear that Virginia had because they were a big slave state at the time. And at the time, the majority of the population were actually slaves. So what happened was they came to an agreement. Virginia was a slave state, and at the time was apprehensive to join the country. So the deal was, since they wanted them to join, they would allow Virginia to form militias, or any state, but this is in the case of Virginia. They would allow them to form militias so that they can patrol their Virginia border armed, particularly the north border. And that way the slaves wouldn't escape. So when they talk about a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, what they're saying is you can do slave patrols to make sure that the slaves in Virginia don't escape north to freedom. Is literally the meaning behind the Second Amendment. So the main purpose, not according to me, but according to the Founding Fathers, and you can read speeches from Patrick Henry and George Mason on this. The purpose of the amendment was to stop slaves from escaping north in Virginia. And those militias you were talking about, Republicans, those militias, slave patrols. It's exactly what that is. No debate. It's just an accepted fact of history based on recorded documents. So it's about standing armies and preserving slavery. So next time somebody comes up to you and they're like, we got the right to protect our guns because government can't be trusted, and sometimes I'm not going to fight back and they'll come out there and take my gun because I'm going to shoot them. You can, just know that they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And none of that was even mentioned in the debates between the Founding Fathers, by the way. Anything to do with protecting your home, protecting your family. I mean, now, yeah, it's great if you want to protect your family and stuff. Like I said, I'm a gun owner. I'm all for it. Who cares? No one, literally no one, not a single politician in the United States wants to take away your guns. So if anyone uses that argument, they're actually retarded. Like they should go see a doctor and get their fucking head checked, because they might have a little bit of the tism. Not a single person has ever suggested that, ever. But yeah, it's just
take our guns.
Take our gun.
Yeah, I actually didn't know a lot of that. That's interesting. It's
disgusting. If you really wanted to get rid of guns, do what Australia did. Buyback program. Hey, if you give your guns to the government, we'll give you money. I like money. Yeah.
Like, it probably have to be like more than retail.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. I'd sell my guns, actually, if that was it. And meta-analysis have been done. It's a proven fact that where there are more guns in a first world nation, in a wealthy first world nation, in a wealthy first world nation, where there are more guns, there are more violent gun crimes.
If you got it lying around, the temptation's just there.
Yeah. It's easier, especially in states where the background checks are still not a requirement in this country. There are some states where you have to do background checks, and that's good for those states. But let's take Chicago, for example. Like, you can't buy a gun in Chicago. But 2 miles outside of Chicago, I can get a gun. So if I really wanted to do some damage, one, I'd go to a place that doesn't have a gun. But to do that, I'd have to go to a place that has a gun first. So, and obviously there's never going to be a way, there's so many guns in this country, there's never going to be a way we can get rid of them even if we tried. There's no way we're going to prevent every gun crime and every death from happening. But I mean, we could at least reduce it. We can reduce the rate a little bit by putting even the majority of NRA members, I think like 80 or 90% of NRA members are for basic gun legislation, like background checks, for example. And a lot of them are even for putting a capacity on magazines. I'm not so sure how I feel about that, as I have not personally seen any evidence that would do anything. Anecdotally, if you gave me a bunch of magazines that held 10 rounds or a bunch of magazines that held 5, I could do about the same amount of damage with either or. Doesn't make a difference. It takes about the same amount of time to swap out a magazine as it does to pull the trigger again. So I don't know about that, but I mean, it's something as simple as, hey, have you ever committed a violent crime? Yeah, I just got out of prison. Okay, well, we're not going to say this gun, because I think you're probably going to do something bad. You know, that's not a thing here. You can be a convicted felon. And because of the gun show loopholes, I mean, you can buy, like I said, off the street.
Entitled to their guns.
Exactly. Keep those, what do they call them? What do you say? Was it blackies? Was that the quote? Blackies? The reefers and their blackies. Yeah, blackies and the reefer. Yeah. Keep them blackies away from... That's actually... And it's the same with the UK, too, because I actually wondered why... Jumping back to marijuana, I was wondering why marijuana was illegal in these European countries. And it's basically the same thing. You know, we export our culture, and they had their own reasons, and also tied to minorities as well. I didn't do as much research. I obviously don't care, because the weather in the UK is shit.
However... Yeah, the marijuana laws here are dumb. Yeah, it's similar. You could draw comparisons.
I also find it interesting that a lot of my friends overseas are not necessarily anti-marijuana. Like, so culturally here, people in the United States who follow politics at least, or at least somewhat educated, like we're embarrassed that marijuana is illegal here. Like, it's really embarrassing. It'd be like if Jeffrey Dahmer was your brother, you know? Like, yeah, you didn't personally do anything, but it's just like that name is too close to you. Like, I'm from the country that I'm from an educated country that made marijuana illegal. That's embarrassing. But people in a lot of other European countries, anecdotally, I've noticed, they're not the same way. They're usually like, yeah, I don't really care. You know, like maybe it could be legal. Or like, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of against it. Like, no, you should be personally offended, because it's such a civil liberty. It's a violation of your civil liberties. Like, I want to do this. You can't. Who am I hurting? Literally nobody. And in many cases, you might not even be hurting yourself. You actually might be helping yourself directly. But you can't really use that argument because, like I said, alcohol is legal. So any argument you have about health risks, alcohol is legal, tobacco is legal. Clearly.
And a lot of the health risks that are cited are just not true.
Right, yeah. I wouldn't accept anything unless you could actually replicate it in a lab and see it for yourself. Otherwise, like, it's not science.
It's supposed to cause heart problems. A lot of people on the right like to say that.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It's been disproven many times.
Right. But I say, even if it's...
The violent thing, I don't know if that's been looked at, but honestly, have you ever
met a stoner?
Have you ever met a stoner?
Have you ever?
They don't want to punch you. They want to hug you.
A lot of times they didn't want to do that.
With you.
A lot of times they didn't want to hug you. That requires getting up. I mean,
yeah, they just want to lay on the couch and watch The Office.
Right, exactly. Or go to YouTube and watch Best of Dwight, Best of Kevin, you know, Creed.
Wait, back up.
Do you think I'm retarded? Oh boy, not that we've known anybody who's done that.
No. Yeah, we haven't known anybody like that. Jumping off into something just as silly as current marijuana laws. I'm sure you've heard about this Logan Paul thing going on that everybody's been talking about.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Is somewhat
you want to explain it for people who might not know?
Logan Paul around the new year, like right after the new year, I think it was the first or the second, he posted a vlog of him in a suicide forest in Japan. And he filmed the body. He filmed the body.
There's a forest in Japan that's
people go to commit suicide.
Thousands
Somebody
of people
died
every year,
and Logan Paul filmed him. Well, the backlash against this guy obviously huge. But YouTube has cut his ad money.
And he didn't just film him either. They were like joking around with him. They were laughing.
Yeah, it was.
Why his fingers are purple?
It was shocking. Yeah,
it was embarrassing to watch.
And he's faced the consequences for that. Facing a lot of backlash. More people are against him than for him.
Even for the internet, that's pretty low.
Yeah, it's crazy. But he again, YouTube cut his ad money. His viewers dropped quite a bit. He's definitely in the hot seat right now. But there have been attempts to kind of pull from this controversy, kind of get him away from the spotlight. And something recently popped up, which has shocked me. I've been watching YouTube since it came out pretty much, and one of the first big YouTubers that I was really into was Shane Dawson. Remember Shanae and all that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. He was crazy, and he's always been the he's always been the king of edgelord jokes, and he made this joke on his podcast a while back.
Shane Dawson started YouTube in 2008. So he started YouTube 3 years after I did.
He's made news recently, because somebody from Pop Blast, this channel called Pop Blast on YouTube, posted a video taking several Shane Dawson clips from his podcast out of context, and it labeled him as a pedophile.
Oh,
it was a really weird story. But that same channel also posted, I guess they posted an apology, and then later they posted a video of like Logan Paul's manager. This is where it gets weird. Logan Paul's manager paying Pop Blast $6,500 to make a hit piece for Shane Dawson. They even give him like specific clips. Like, use these clips and edit them in this way to make him look bad. And the conclusion drawn there was that Logan Paul's manager paid to have Shane Dawson hit on the internet, basically, to distract from his own client's problems. And it's crazy. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think maybe it was Pop Blast just trying to make waves, but they deleted their channel. So I don't. It was a really strange situation. But here, this situation has helped me discover a certain clip and a certain. I don't know if we'll call her an artist. Shane Dawson in this clip was supposedly talking about a young girl who had several Instagram followers, and he was making jokes like, oh yeah, she's sexy, hence why people called him a pedophile. And this girl is Alabama Barker. Alabama Barker, if you don't know, is the son of the legendary drummer from one of my favorite bands, Blink-182. Don't say a goddamn thing about my Blink.
I wasn't going to say anything. Travis Barker's not that great of a drummer.
He is entertaining. Okay? He's a decent drummer. He makes some decent music.
He's good on a snare. On a snare drum. You put him on a full kit, he doesn't know what the fuck to do.
He still makes some pleasant sounds. He's a decent musician.
I like how he hits things. He hits
several times repeatedly.
He hits them good.
Hits them real hard. Yeah, I enjoy his music, and which is why it's baffling. This clip that I want to play for you here. This is Alabama Barker. The song.
Alabama Barker.
The song is called "Our House."
Our house in the middle of the...
No, that actually had like. That was actually semi good. I didn't want to
catchy, at
bang my
least.
head against a wall for this. This is Travis Barker's daughter. The drummer from one of the most popular punk bands. You can't dispute that.
Blink 182 is a punk band.
Definitely a punk band. Alternative.
Fact
Whatever.
check.
Don't.
Blink 182. Blink 182. Let's see.
Pop
American
punk.
rock band. That's weird. Yeah, it's like.
And
it's like they're not
Travis Barker, in any case, allowed this to happen. TJ, would you roll the clip, please? This is our
Let's see,
our
what the fuck is
house,
this thing?
Alabama Barker.
Our house, Alabama Barker. Okay, let's see what. Oh my god, that was loud. Okay, I know you guys can't see what's going on right now.
This is
never
probably the
thought-
most Rebecca Black thing to come out since Rebecca Black.
I never thought I'd say this, but I encourage you to look up Alabama Barker Our House. I really do, because it may sound kind of repetitive and annoying after the first 12 seconds, but
But it's so funny.
if you just see what's going on, it's like this 11-year-old girl who is wearing Victoria's Secret on her face, like the makeup, and
like midriff shirts.
right, exactly, and she's
Hanging out with a bunch of random fucking people in her
with their
mansion.
hands up in the air and just and partying and being happy and smiling. It's Rebecca Black.
It's the new Rebecca Black.
It's the
and
new
it's
Rebecca
Travis
Black.
Barker's daughter.
It's the Rebecca Barker.
Just play like 20 more seconds.
All right,
of
let's
this.
listen to this shit.
Crazy, don't care if we are. Go out on a daily. We don't gotta go out, we can just stay in tonight. We can have a great time chilling in my crib tonight. Once the doors are closed,
What the
it's can't nobody make us turn it down.
All right, that's enough of that.
This is too much. Yeah, I can't, oh my god.
It doesn't even sound like I think she's 14. Doesn't even sound like a 14-year-old girl. That sounds like the robot Siri version of a 14-year-old girl.
Top comment: when I was her age, I was watching Disney Channel.
Same.
Good job, top commenter. How old is she?
How old is she? She's like 14. She's like 14 now, I think.
That's crazy. And this,
13, 14. She was recently a preteen. Yeah.
oh god.
Yes, and now she's doing. You would think that Daddy would sit her down for a guitar or drum lesson even once.
Right.
Here's what actual music is.
Yeah.
But she did
or
this.
or Travis Barker's version at least.
Could you imagine Travis Barker on that track?
Have you seen him play the NFL theme song?
No.
Oh my god, you haven't heard that? Travis, oh my god, you got listen to this shit. NFL.
Travis Barker and his daughter should collab. That'd be entertaining.
So you guys probably all know the
Does he just wail on the snare?
No, even dumber. Listen to this intro he did. He did a mix for the NFL. Let's see if I can get this up. That's Travis Barker. That's what he does. Sure, I don't agree with his drumming style. I don't think he's particularly good, and I wouldn't pay $20 to see him perform for 2.5 straight hours.
Don't diss my blink. Diss my blink, get hit.
That being said, I would rather Travis Barker take his drumsticks for 20, maybe 30 seconds and wail on my balls than have to listen to the entirety of whatever the hell song you just sent me and forced me to listen to 40 seconds of.
If anything, it's purely for entertainment value. Yeah. So moral of the story: you gotta keep digging deep on the internet.
Wait, so
and
what'd
then
she
you
have to
find
do
these
with
gems?
What'd she have to do with Shane Dawson though?
She, for some reason, she was having a conversation with Shane Dawson, and Shane Dawson was making jokes about that on his podcast. I don't have the clip ready, but he was saying something to the effect of, "Oh yeah, she has so many Instagram followers, and she's pretty and shit like that." And she was like 8 years old at the time, but she was. He was making jokes. He was making very shitty jokes.
Okay.
Like if you listen to the podcast, you can tell that Pop Blast video was taken completely out of context. They even edited a portion of a sentence out, so that if that shows you how, and left the beginning and the end. If that shows you how like dishonest that video was.
I love intellectual dishonesty.
He even prefaces it by, "Okay, I'm not actually a pedophile," you know.
Right. It's
I
kind
do not support pedophilia.
What's like what happened with PewDiePie the other month, with everybody thinking he's some sort of a Nazi because he made fun of the news for thinking he was a Nazi. I don't know how it could get more blatant. Like, if that's not a blatant example of just dishonest, and I'm going to use a term here that I don't entirely agree with, but please forgive me, journalism. If that's not an example of dishonest and just shitty journalism.
Can I read you a couple of headlines from Snapchat? Now the news hub of the world. I'll tell you what journalism has become. Here are just a couple of headlines. Swallow this pill to find out what about yourself from Now This.
Oh, okay.
This is
Clickbait.
the coolest sneaker of the week.
Clickbait.
GQ. Tastemade 13 McFlurry flavors you won't believe exist.
Clickbait. Do they think that everybody has like ADD or something?
Cosmopolitan 15 gross AF things you and your bestie do.
What's a gross Air Force thing?
Shut the fuck up.
You know, every time somebody puts that AF, I always think that. Like, I am tired Air Force. What?
Kyrie is everything he wanted LeBron to be for him. Bleacher Report.
Who the hell are any of these people?
I guess they're NBA players. I know LeBron, that's a name. I think he played rugby or something.
He plays the basketball game. He plays Disney's basketball.
Rugby. How many people did I just trigger?
You mean Disney's basketball?
Disney's basketball.
Because they own ESPN.
ESPN.
Yep. And now they own Fox, FX, FXX. That's good.
Thank God, because I want to see Wolverine
Marvel
next to Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. That'd be cool.
Don't be one of those.
That's all I care about.
Don't be one
honestly.
of those morons. No.
Yeah, they're gonna own a fuck ton.
I love monopolies. I just can't wait for a big company like Disney.
That was Fox that owns X-Men, right? Pretty sure it was Fox.
Yeah, and they owned Simpsons, stuff like that. Yeah. But it's goodbye Universal Studio. But no, it's really fun when a single conglomerate corporation owns over 30% of the market for something like film. It'd be really great to tell all those small studios, hey, you want to play our stuff? You got to play by our rules because we're 30% of your income. That's great that they're about to become that with that recent merger they just announced with Fox. Yeah, I mean, they're not getting like Fox News. You know, obviously, it's like when you buy a house, you know. Like, yeah, I'll take the dishwasher, I'll take the fridge, but you can take the lice-ridden sofa, which we would call Fox News. You know, obviously they don't want all of Fox. Just
lice and bedbug.
Lice and bedbugs in sofa.
Yes.
Yes, exactly, which is what we call Fox News, which is fair and unbiased. So fair and unbiased that they tell you so much how they bring people from the left on with opinions X, Y, and Z, which would imply that they are not the left and they are not X, Y, and Z, revealing their bias. The ultimate irony is that they don't see that at all, especially Tucker Carlson. Did I say that right? Yup.
Would you leave my Fox News alone? Fox
News is actually the best news. My president watches it.
It's the best news. It's the hugest.
It's the huge. It's great. It's terrific. It's fantastic. It's like he's
the
always
best.
just trying to find the next best adjective, but he can't find it. It's great. It's terrific. It's fantastic. It's the best. It's huge.
Where do you go from there?
Hugest. It's the most huge.
He's going to start inventing his own adjectives.
Oh, I saw a report the other day that it only took him 11 months, but he actually got to his 2,000th lie in office. In 11, which is on average 5.6 lies per day. He reached 2,000, which is more than any other president in modern history. 2,000 lies.
You got to give it up. You got to give it up.
How do you do that?
Well done.
I can't even think of 2,000 false things.
Guinness Book of World Records worthy?
Yeah, well, it's on record.
Records.
Oh, it's embarrassing. But you know what? We're actually going to have a whole segment on Trump next week, as he will be coming up on his 1 year in office before next week. So we'll have a special podcast for that.
It's going to be so fun.
We're going to give him a little bit of a report card. We're both going to collectively come together and talk about his presidency and the stuff that he's done, where he's come, and what he's done for us, to us, same thing. And
Bent over a table. Thrust.
no spoilers, but we will be talking about that next week. We also might have an additional episode as well.
Sweet. So do you want to wrap this up with a one pop culture thing?
Oh, sure. Yeah, why not?
So I have forced you to watch Black Mirror in the past.
I've watched Black Mirror. Yes, I have, and you
Yes.
watched it with me. If
Yes.
that's what you're saying, yes.
I introduced it to you. I'm gonna take that credit.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? It's so good. It's such a good show. They released their 4th season recently. That was a week or two ago.
Sure.
And my favorite from that whole series was Hang the DJ. Hang the DJ was like a virtual reality Tinder story. And it was like Black Mirror's rom-com.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I did watch part of that with you.
It was really funny, really heartbreaking at times, but at the end, it was an actual happy ending. And it's pretty rare on Black Mirror, but it got me thinking about online dating in its current climate and the progression of that.
And a quick disclaimer, online dating is something that is actively done in the United States culture by 12% of adults.
Thank you, TJ from NPR. Yeah, it's 12%. 12%.
Yeah, 12%, yeah.
With people from 18 to 24 being 27%.
27, yep.
27% of people from the ages of 18 to 24 use online dating apps. It's just going to keep growing from there. It's kind of crazy to see.
It's the
internet.
It's the Amazon of dating. You used to have to go to the store to get your shit. Now you open an app and you click what you want, and it comes to you.
Literally, that's where I picked all my women up before Tinder, was grocery stores.
Usually
in the Rite Aid aisle.
I tend to in the cosmetics aisle of Rite Aid.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh boy. That's where I see all the Fitbirds.
All the honeys.
All the honeys in the cosmetic aisle of Rite Aid.
It's crazy to see how the internet has really shaped lives, and the prevalence of online dating. I see it in my sphere because obviously I'm in that dynamic or in that demographic.
Right.
18 to 24.
Yes.
Almost all of my friends use dating apps.
It's weird because, again, anecdotally, you're the only friend of mine that I know of that uses them. And I think there might be one guy, I think I heard, met his current girlfriend on the app Tinder. I don't know if that's true. I did hear that, but let's assume that is the case. That means 2 people I know of have used Tinder. Just anecdote. It's interesting.
Still, it's huge in the culture right now.
Right? Yeah.
And
Family Guy made fun of it. South Park made fun of it.
if they went after it, it's big.
Right. Exactly. Like religion.
It makes me excited for the possibilities.
It's the Amazon of dating.
You can even connect with people from other countries.
Right.
On these apps.
Why settle for domestic when you could get the imported?
When you can import your women. Yeah.
That's what my president did. I mean, if
I'm just following in his footsteps, guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm gonna say, because there are so many women, Schmidt. I don't have to tell you. There are so many women. Why are you laughing?
Yes, gone are the days where you could just slaughter a pig, give it to her dad, and just have a wife. You know?
Exactly.
Now
save the pig, save the
I've
shekels of silver.
$5 for a package of super likes.
Wow. What's a super like get you?
It gets you a super like. It lets you know that you super like them.
Oh.
It's worth $5, yeah. Being taken for a ride. But I see value in these apps for the most part.
Yeah, it's the Amazon of dating.
The Amazon.
Is it not?
Import your women. Get it now.
Get it now.
And in mass. Really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Honestly, Tim Ferriss, I don't know if you're familiar with who he is.
I know who Tim Ferriss is.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss. He's all about optimization. He has a podcast called The Tim Ferriss Show. And I saw some segment where he likes to, in his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, he talks about batching emails and batching means basically doing one thing at the same time, but like all of it to save time in the long run, That's the idea behind it. So he batched dating. You can do that now with dating apps. You basically got on Match.com and then had like dates back to back, several days and several weeks. And that's the possibility. It's a thing of beauty. And I think that's a good stopping point, don't you think, TJ?
I think it's good for the first podcast. So, no idea how long this thing is. Don't really care. We're probably just going to make our next few ones in a similar fashion till we get a feel for it. Then we'll realize how long we want it to be.
Moderate the fuck out of it.
Right. We'll figure it out. Whatever. Next week, like I said, we'll maybe have a podcast. We'll definitely have a podcast covering Trump. Absolutely, definitely will for his 1 year anniversary.
Unfortunately,
as my leader, and we will.
When?
We'll come out with that. We might have a second one because it's Saturday.
Right. Please forgive us for the structure. Again, this is in the beginning stages.
Yep.
But
we'll figure it out.
We're working on it.
I hope Pro Tools is recording. That'd be good.
Oh, just gotta press that record button.
Oh, just hang on, guys. I didn't click spacebar. My bad.
All right. Well,
thanks.
This is Schmidt.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. This is TJ.
Have a wonderful evening.
And a dandy Monday.
And a lovely existence. Goodbye.
Why the hell did you listen to this whole thing?
Bye.